Yeah, thanks for joining us again. Well, we've already given him a massive round of applause, so I'm going to throw it over to Lucy, who's going to introduce your panel. So first, I get to introduce Lucy. Again, what can you say? Yeah, a professional skateboarder. He's won, repping Love and Skate, that's enough said, really. But then after that, it's also the winner of the UK Skateboard Champs, Girls UK Skate Jam, and is now the chair of Skateboard England for the Olympics. Please give it up for the one and only the legendary Lucy Adams.
Can I just, have we got we had a plan, the plan's changed. Was an organiser going to come and do a chat? Yep. I'm looking for someone that was going to come and just say something quickly. Apologies to the crowd. Okay. Yeah, it's gone wrong.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom. I'm one of the organisers. We've been having a fascinating conversation, informative conversation, instructive conversation in the room next door with this panel. One of the reasons for that conversation is that Beatrice Dumont, who was supposed to be on the panel, couldn't make it. And when we found out that she couldn't make it, we were going through the process of what do we do in this situation. If Beatrice isn't on the panel, we have an all-white panel. And one of the things that we're trying to do and trying to be reflective of as Pushing Borders is to give space to diverse, a variety of voices, and to be representative of what skateboarding is, experiences in skateboarding. We particularly want to be reflective of that because as organizers, we're like 6 white guys. And a lot of the panelists who appear throughout the week are people in our networks. We've built personal relationships with them. That's how we know, we'll get this person to speak about this thing. We'll get this person to speak about this thing. And one big blind spot that we have is having a deep bench of diverse voices. So we were concerned if we lost the voice of a black woman on this panel, what do we do? Do we replace it with the voice of another black woman on this panel? And for me, my perception was that might appear tokenistic. That might, we're just replacing one for the other as if they're the same, and they're not the same. But in my own fear of appearing tokenistic, I therefore avoided asking the question. And one of the things that Kristin made the point of backstage was, or I think somebody made the point of, is ask the question. Ask Kava, would you like to be on this panel? Ask the panel what they'd like to do for this panel. And also the point was made, we shouldn't have been put in this situation. We shouldn't have put ourselves in this situation where if we lose the one black voice on this panel, then we don't have one and we have to replace it with another. The panel should be more diverse, should be more representative, so that if we lost a voice, the panel is still diverse and representative. I hope that we have as many, I hope that we have diverse voices and representation across Pushing Borders. But we have gaps. We have massive gaps. We have blind spots. One of the ways that we want to do that and we want to get better is to change the structure of who Pushing Borders is organizing it, and it not be just 6 white guys, or not be even the wider group among that. So we want to get better at that. We want to acknowledge the blind spots that we've had, the failings that we've had. Kristin spoke at the Kyle Beachy's Anything at All last night about how to be an ally, how to learn these things, and how to be willing to fail and to be willing to admit your mistakes. So that's what we want to do at the start of this panel, is we want to admit our mistakes. Not just for this panel, but for other panels. I think the next panel as well is potentially very homogenous. Some of that is not putting the blame somewhere else, but some of that is structural. The people who work in skateboarding, it's quite homogenous. At the industry level, the people who work in architecture, in urban planning, in all of these things, it's all fairly homogenous. And so how as skateboarding can we be better, representative of the voices within skateboarding, but also how do we push back against these structural things as well? That's something that has come up in some of the other talks. How do we fight back against capitalism? But basically, we want to make ourselves open to this discussion and to learn from the people who have these diverse voices and experiences and representations. And I also want to recognize that the way that I'm saying this and describing this, I'm probably saying things massively incorrectly as well. By saying diversity and representation, I want to get better at that. And I want you to help us get better at that, not to put the emotional labor on you to do that, but for us to come and find that from you and to hear from you and to grow and get better.
Thanks, Tom. Stop trying to take all my time. God. All right, thank you very much for coming. Massive thanks to Pushing Borders crew. It's been an absolutely unbelievable few days. I am thoroughly exhausted. Physically, my bunions are done, and mentally, I just feel, I don't know if you can be inspired out, but I am like, seriously, I thought there'd be a lot more knitwear, and I'm really disappointed in the amount of scarves at this conference. Like I am. But no, the reason we're here today and this amazing group of women are sitting up here on these really nice velvet couches are because this panel is here to collectively discuss a situation, a landscape, challenges, possible difficulties that we as women face in skateboarding. And secondly, we'd like to try and offer up ways to unpick and overcome those. So that's why we're here. Shout outs though to Sam Maguire for just reading out the bio in the thing. Woo! I tried to do it off the cuff, but I still read from my book. So I'm going to introduce you to these absolutely wonderful women. Next to me on the couch is Knoop. She is a pro skateboarder and advocate entrepreneur from the US. Her pro skate career sees her as one of the most accomplished women skateboarders. She's had numerous X Games medals, won Vans Pro Tech pool party. Mimi's dedicated her life to growing skateboarding for the next generation by starting Hoopla Skateboards. She also created the Skate Exchange and was the founder of the Women's Skateboard Alliance. She played a large role in securing prize money inequality for men and women at the X Games and was recently named USA's women's team manager and coach. Put your hands together for Knoop, everybody. So we go down to the other end. We've got Kristin Ebeling. Kristin is the executive director of Skate Like a Girl, a non-for-profit organisation that reaches over 7,000 skateboarders in the Seattle, Portland, and SF Bay area each year. Her experience as a youth mentor, skateboarder, activist informs her unique approach to improving equity and access in skateboarding, inspiring non-traditional skateboarders globally. Kristin founded Wheels of Fortune event. It just celebrated its 10th year in Seattle this year, and she also co-founded the Skate Witch scene and also contributes regularly to Vent City podcast, Thrasher magazine, and Skatism magazine. And her most recent work can be viewed on the Thrasher site as part of the Skate Rats video Pump on This. Check out that section. Kristin, everybody. In the middle here, we've got Candy Jacobs. Candy's a professional skateboarder from the Netherlands. Besides competing at Street League, X Games, and gaining an all-important podium position at the recent Dew Tour, Candy teaches about mental health at elementary schools. She also realised one of her biggest dreams by building an indoor skate park with her dad in her hometown of Venlo. She skates there as often as she can, hanging out with her local crew and progressing. Big ups, Candy. And of course, now we have Kava Garcia Vasquez. She's a skateboarder and activist youth educator from the Bronx, NYC. In 2017, she founded Meninanda, a girls' skateboarding initiative based in Maputo, Mozambique. From 2017 to 2018, Kava completed a research fellowship during which she explored how women are personally and politically empowered through skateboarding. Kava, everybody. And last but not least, we've got Amber Edmondson. Amber is a co-founder of Women Skate the World, a non-profit organisation whose mission is to break through the gender barriers by engaging, inspiring, empowering women through skateboarding worldwide. Amber is currently based in Athens, Greece, and works as the programs director for Free Movement Skateboarding. looking after both the women's and the volunteer program, as well as covering monitoring and evaluation for the organisation. Put your hands together for Amber. So I'm just going to throw you to Amber because she just wants to inform us all a bit more about the situation in Athens with the refugee crisis.
Hi. Yeah, I just want to spend a little bit of time to use this platform to talk about the situation in Greece and make sure that everybody here kind of understands how bleak it is at the moment. So I'm not going to talk about the experience of being a refugee in Athens because I am not a refugee. I have a British passport and I will never understand that experience. But I do want to just talk about some facts and give you a bit of context. So there are hundreds of refugees arriving into Athens every day. Yesterday, there was 9 more boats that arrived. Most people arrive through the islands by sea. On the islands, there's currently 21,300 refugees living in camps. This isn't mainland Greece, this is just on the islands surrounding Greece. To give you a little bit more of an idea of what that might look like, I'm going to talk about one camp in particular. It's called Moria Camp, and it has a capacity of 1,300. That means that if there are 1,300 people or less living there, everybody has adequate access to food, water, and shelter. There are currently 8,000 people living in that camp. And this is before they get to the mainland. When they arrive into mainland Greece, they will try to get an asylum process going, and that starts with an interview. The interview doesn't guarantee asylum in any way. It is a fact-finding mission where they literally will just say, who are you, where are you from, how many dependents do you have? If you arrive in Greece today, the date of the interview that you're going to be given is 2024. So that's 5 years just even to start the process. Alongside that, the Greek government has started a program of evicting self-organized squats so that the homeless refugees living in Athens can't even find shelter for themselves. Alongside that, UNHCR and the SDA are phasing out accommodation. The newly elected centre-right government, New Democracy, has just introduced a policy where refugees cannot get social security numbers. That means that they cannot legally work and they cannot access healthcare. And they are homeless for 5 years without any support, at least 5 years. And the reason that I want to talk about this just quickly is that I feel like in the media we are it's portrayed that this is a thing that happened and now we're coming out of it, and it's not in the media as much. It's not like it was a few years ago when we were seeing pictures of kids being washed up on the shores and everybody was really shocked by that. But to give you an idea, just from this year to last year, there's been a 400% increase in arrivals by sea. This problem is not going anywhere. It is getting a lot worse, and it is going to continue to get worse as we see more climate refugees. All I can ask of all of you is use your platform. If you have an Instagram following, a blog, a publication, anything, talk about this. People are not aware that this is happening. And we're also seeing people returning back to their war-torn countries, not because it's safe, but because the situation in Greece is so bleak that they don't have a choice. Thanks.
Thanks, Amber. So, yeah, I urge you to all do what you can, put that news out there and get that message out to the world. Okay, so we're now going to dive into, first of all, I just wanted to do a quick bit, and I know, Kristin, you've got some experience on this, and I don't want to trip over my words. So we're going to just talk about the education on identity. Is that right? If you could just... Yeah.
Totally. Hey, everybody. How are we doing? Can I invite everyone just to take a real big, deep breath with me, and we're going to sigh it out. Ready? Sometimes you just got to do that. Just got to reset a little bit. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some language really quick just before we get started. And I just want to talk about the idea that there are certain terms that get thrown around, and I think a lot of times people don't necessarily know what certain terms mean. And as far as I know, there's the word female, which often gets like interchanged for women or girls. In skateboarding in particular, female skateboarding, I hear that a lot, or girl skateboarding, I hear that a lot. And just really quick, just so everyone in this room is aware, I've been trying to take the word female out of my vocabulary. The reason behind that is female is a biological term, which just means that you have a vagina, which is awesome. But it's not the most inclusive term and doesn't align with my values of trying to be as inclusive as possible, and particularly to the trans and non-binary community. And recognizing that there is a lot of overlap with identities and things as well. So I've been trying to use like words like women or women and trans and non-binary folks. And yeah, I just wanted to invite others to join me in that to try to shift the culture to be more trans inclusive.
Thank you very much. Cheers. So with that said, we're going to get underway with our first kind of topic, and that is around, I'd like to start by investigating the issues and barriers faced by women and girls on entry to skateboarding. In particular, I think we might focus a bit about the skate park because that's a significant entry point. But I want to mention something that was discussed at last year's women's panel at Pushing Borders, and it was kind of said, an idea was put across that if women are intimidated at the skate park or they think they're not good enough, that they should go away, skate skill up, and then come back to the skate park. Discuss.
Yeah, I just want to make a point. I mean, a lot of people say that that's what you have to do because that's the way that skateboarding has always been. But that doesn't mean that that's how it always should have been. I think that we've had like 50 plus years of skateboarding. It didn't work. There are still not enough women on board, so let's try something different and create space. The other thing I want to say about this idea that it's kind of on the woman to be, brave and put herself out there and, be more determined. And if she's passionate enough, she'll do it. Well, a lot of the kids I teach have never seen a skateboard before. So why the fuck would they be passionate about it until they're given an opportunity to try it? And the other thing is that I teach girls as young as 7 who, I spoke about some of the things that they might have been through. They are the bravest and most determined women that I have ever met. And if they walk into a skate park and they're intimidated, nobody is going to tell me that it is on them to be braver or more determined.
I remember when, during my Thomas J. Watson Fellowship, I spent 1 calendar year traveling to mostly South Africa, Germany, Mexico, and India, learning about how women are personally and politically empowered through skateboarding, their involvement in skate communities. And I remember working with Indigo Youth Movement in South Africa at their Durban site. And mind you, the context is we're in a rural Zulu village where a man named Dallas Oberhalzer decided to found a skate camp as a way of trying to use skateboarding to heal through certain wounds left behind by apartheid. And I remember someone in the village asking me, so how do we get the mother of 2 to skate? In this rural Zulu village, they're asking me this question that at first I was like, that's not even a practical question. What do you mean by this question? And as I thought about it more, I realized that when we're asking about how do we get the mother of 2 to skate, we're engaging the deeper questions around women's role in society and how oftentimes we're only ever seen as a role, whether it is a mother, someone's sister, someone's auntie, someone's mom, but not necessarily someone who is already in community with themselves before entering into a relationship with another person. And I think that whether we're talking about the question of maternality, whether we're talking about the question of economic access, I think it's important for us to consider that perhaps gender is an economic condition that shapes the landscape of possibility for people who don't have that already presumed access to space, men, presumed or that get paid more because their intellect is presumed, or because there's infrastructure available because if they are going to go on leave for maternity leave or paternal leave or something like, or parental leave, that is already embedded into the infrastructure. That freedom is already afforded to men in a way that structurally it is not afforded to women. And so when we ask that question of how, we're not even in the skate park yet, right? So I want us to make sure that we're engaging this sort of intersectional lens. And what I mean by intersectionality, just to make sure we're being clear on our terms, this is a term coined by a critical theorist named Kimberly Crenshaw, Black woman who is currently a professor of civil rights and race-related issues in the United States. And intersectionality is this idea that inequalities such as racism, sexism, ableism, classism are not isolated or distinct, but rather they overlap and they mutually sustain one another, inform one another, constitute one another. And so I want to make sure that if we look at this question from a lens of gender is an economic condition, then we can start to really delve deeper into why women are not just afraid to skate, but perhaps it's a question of women's ability to make their own decisions.
Thank you. Thanks, Kava.
Thank you, Kava. I just wanted to speak a little bit of my experiences, my failures, and my path to creating a program model that I feel like really works for getting more non-traditional skaters moving. And currently, like, we host this session in Seattle, Portland, in the Bay Area, so it's been reproduced, and we've shared this information with like people globally, and it's been fairly successful. So I just get a lot of questions about, well, how do I even start? What do we do? Or we have like Girl Skate Free, like I don't know why like they're not showing up. So I just want to talk a little bit about our journey. So I started hosting women's sessions. We called them Ladies Night originally. And we hosted these sessions for years, and they sort of morphed over time. And it started as like girl skate for $5. And then we saw maybe like 5 women show up, and they were mostly advanced skaters like myself. And I was like, okay, 5 girls, okay, that's pretty good. But then we started having conversations around how can we get more people here. And then we were like, okay, maybe it just needs to be that like women skate for free. Like we need a little bit more incentive. And maybe we need to have like skateboards available and like, you know, have more people available to maybe help or greet people. So then we started to get maybe like 10 folks pretty regularly. I'm like, okay, we're doing pretty good here. And over the course of time, I started building relationships with the indoor skate parks that we host these sessions at. And I was like, I wonder if we could make this like our own space, like have it just for women in this skate park. So I worked with the locations to get that handled, and as soon as we made it just for women, that's when our numbers grew, you know, probably double from there consistently. But still, at that point, we still had men instructing. And what started to happen was that we would have our lessons, and that was amazing, and the space was totally full, and folks were learning, and it was amazing. But then after the session, or after the lessons, we're like, oh, we should have a session with everybody. And when the session happened, all the guys that were instructing started to skate. And what I witnessed was that all the women that had just learned and been so empowered and like fired up about skating, as soon as like those folks the men started taking up space and skating, I noticed they'd put their gear away and they'd leave or stand on the sidelines. And I was like, okay, I know that that's not the intention of the space. What our goal would be is that all of us could just skate together, right? But recognizing what I just witnessed. Like if I was like a scientist, right, I would be observing this data and notice all these women were skating, and then all of a sudden they weren't, and then it was just men skating. And so at that point, we had a conversation among the folks in our community, and we were like, do we think we can do this like without men at all? And we decided that we'd give it a try. And when that happened, some really amazing transformative things happened. One of which was that after the hour-long lesson, we had about 2 hours of a solid skate session with all the women, non-binary and trans folks that were showing up, and it was beautiful. So the last thing that I'll mention is that we decided to change our name. About year and a half ago, we got our community together again because we received some feedback that ladies' night did not feel welcoming and safe for everybody. And we came together and our community decided that women in trans session felt really good for us. We wanted to call in trans people intentionally, and we've just seen a lot more of those folks show up. So I just wanted to share that story so you can understand the journey and the years and years. It was about an 8-year process to get to a place where we feel pretty confident with the program structure, and we're still working through some kinks with our name and making sure everyone feels safe and comfortable with the space. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I think we've sort of...
Sorry, Lucy, can I just...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, something I wanted to say as well is that if you want to get more women, trans people and non-binary people at your, whether it's a skate project, a skate park, a skate jam, whatever it is, and you have instructors there, the instructors should reflect the people that you want to invite in to your space so that they can see somebody and know, okay, this space is for me, as they are there and, you know, enjoy the space for the first time and start to claim it and own it and feel at home there. That's the biggest thing that I see that can really make a difference to whether it's women feel safe in that space. And I know that there's a lot of talk around, well, if we want equality, we should all skate together. And that there is a time for that, but there is a time for a women-only safe space that creates space for women who just before anything to do with skateboarding want to know that they're in a space where they are not forced to interact with men for whatever reason. And I think that we should, when we're talking about women-only safe spaces, we need to separate it as its first purpose is as a safe space for women without any interactions with men, and then it can be a skate park that those people can feel safe in and enjoy as a skate park.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, you brought my point up there. I was going to say we sort of successfully dispelled the myth that if we want equality, we've got to just get in on the session and mix the gender all the time, and that's how we're going to get it. I know also you mentioned, we discussed before about in those spaces of mixed gender, sometimes you're attracting unwanted sexual attention. Has anyone got experience of that?
Can we raise our hand?
For sure.
I mean, that just kind of happens in life too, not just at the skate park. So,
I think I skated when I was a kid and I stopped when I was 14. And I did an interview recently where I hadn't thought of this. I just said it and it suddenly clicked for me. That the reason that I stopped, the reason that there was a 14-year gap there was that when I was 14 and I was going through puberty, the thing that gave me joy, the thing of like finishing, like running out of school and skating all the way down this big hill to the bus stop, was I was suddenly receiving this attention that I wasn't used to, that I didn't know what to do with, and that I really wanted to shy away from. And a skateboard makes a lot of noise, and it makes people turn around and look at you. And when I was 14, that was the last thing that I wanted. And unfortunately, it took me 14 years to get back on a board. But I do think that that's something that especially young women in skateboarding, and there's a lot of reasons that women don't skate, but I do personally, that was the reason that I stopped skateboarding when at that age.
I just want to share the story about me starting to skate because I experienced a lot of allyship growing up. I had a bunch of I showed up to the skate park. I was the only girl. I had no idea. It was just me. I didn't even know that was like a special thing, or it was just people skating and I wanted to skate, so I showed up and I skated. And people talk shit, but people talk shit all the time. So it wasn't about me being like different or whatever. I couldn't skate yet.
I have a very similar experience.
I learned to skate. It took me a while. I wasn't talented. The first year, it took me a year to learn a kickflip. I could roll in, I could drop in. That was about it. But I was obsessed, and I had all these dudes who were like also obsessed, and they were my homies. So when we went to a different skate park or whatever, that would be like my bubble. They would protect me. Like I experienced a lot of allyship, and also I was uneducated. I think I never realized I was the only woman until I saw another woman skate, and I was like, what? wait, I've never seen this. And it was like a super weird experience for me because I never realized it was something special or something different because I'd always been a tomboy. Like I was always playing with my brother, playing soldier, all that stuff. And I think until like maybe 10 years, like I've been skating for 15 years, I think 8 or 9 years ago, I realized I'm a woman in a male sport. That's the question I hate the most. Like people will be like, oh, let me ask you this question. What is it like to be a female in a male sport? I fucking hate that question. I've answered it so many times. Also, it is not a male sport. It's not a thing. It's not a male sport. It's just something people do. And it's also like, it's questionable. Is it a sport? Whatever. But I just want to say that for me, it helped a lot that there was a lot of allyship. And of course, sexual intimidation happens all the time. It's super sketch, but I had a lot of homies looking out for me. I think like my homies all stopped when they were like 16, 17. They found out there was more women in the world and they wanted to experience what that was like. So it was just me, and ever since that moment I realized this is like, I'm pretty like special, if you want to call it, because it was just me. And there's a gap of, I think I'm 29 now, the next skater that's like out there skating is 18. There was like almost a 10-year gap, more than 10-year gap of the next generation of women starting to skate. Now I see that is a problem. I never realized before, like, also this week I learned a lot about even that being a thing. Like, of course I knew, but I think through sharing experiences like this, like with all of you guys, we can definitely make it a more safer space, a better space for everyone, not just women or like just everyone. I think little boys growing up skateboarding, they're like 4 years old, they were 5 years old, they want to go to the skate park, they're intimidated. And I think we can all learn from each other how to like make that safe space happen. And right now, like you said, I think right now is a time where we have to have that all women space. But I think I'm hopeful. Like I think in 5 years, maybe 10, that will not be necessary anymore. We will just be skateboarders. And yeah, that's just what I wanted to add, just my story a little bit.
Thank you. So do you want it?
I'll just add a little bit since
Go.
we're getting on here.
Please do.
I've had a very similar experience to Candy.
Yeah.
I first stepped on a skateboard in 1985, and I was like a 6-year-old little kid. But I didn't see or meet another girl skater until I was almost 23. So I had that whole, span of just skating with my guy friends in high school and college, and same deal. Like they supported me. Like I'm still friends with them now. They're like old men, Yeah, I do also see the importance of what like Kristin's doing with Skate Like a Girl, and it's been a learning experience for me because I'm not doing that myself, but I've learned from what they've done with their programming. And I do think it is really vital to create that almost like an on-ramp for little girls to feel comfortable. I mean, it's a different age now. We didn't have skate parks when I was a kid either, so like we were skating down the street. It wasn't like I was at one place all the time, so maybe that was part of it too. But yeah, that's all I was going to add.
Thank you. So having said all that, I think moving on, I want to investigate this idea that we're like so progressive, and it's been mentioned throughout other panels, but something that happened recently is I saw a picture on Instagram, and it was a picture of a kind of a podium at a skateboarding competition in Europe, and there was a man winner, and he was standing there with his big check, and he was beaming, and it was 3,000 euros. And next to him was the woman winner, and she was standing there with her big check, equally beaming, and it was 1,000 euros. And I screenshotted that pic, and I put it up, and I was like, no, this isn't okay. It was late at night. I woke up the next morning, mad DMs. A few of them saying, oh, that's so unfair, shocking, oh my God, emoji. But the majority of the DMs was something like this. From a man who's quite a good skater in the UK. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I hope she starts skateboarding. I'm all for equality, but surely if she wants the same prize money, then she should compete against him with the same caliber of skill. Yeah. So, Mimi, I'm going to throw to you here. Because you've lived this battle, and in 2008, I think it was, you were in a situation with ESPN around equal prize money at the X Games. Can you tell us a little bit about that story, and then we'll see where we
Yeah,
go.
so it actually started in 2005. My first X Games was a couple years before that. I mean, I was super green. I didn't really know anything about the industry. I was just like, this is really fun, you know? But at the time, there was like a pretty big disparity in the prize purse between men and women. I think like men's first place at the time was 50 grand, and then women's was 2. And it was like, you know, Cara Beth Burnside and Alyssa Steamer, they were like winning those events for, you know, Burton Street. And I mean, they couldn't even pay for their hotel for the week, you know, with that. So that was one factor. But the other, maybe more important factor is we didn't have input into our own events at the time either. And there was no exposure. So it was like this multitude of problems that we kind of had no control over. So long story short, we kind of got together really spontaneously the night before the women's street contest in 2005 at X Games. Just kind of all met in a hotel room. Vanessa Torres, Alyssa, Amy Carone, Cara Beth, Jen O'Brien. I don't remember who else was there, a bunch of people. And we were just like, shit, should we just like maybe not go tomorrow and see what happens? And I mean, they weren't advertising it. It wasn't like, you know, anyone even knew it was happening anyway. So
What time was it due to take place?
it was probably like 10 a.m. or something. Doors open at 12. So yeah. So yeah, I should also add, we were being mentored by a lawyer at the time who came from track and field. So my mom had met him. My mom went to college in her 50s, met him in an exercise management class. Long story short, that's how we met this guy. I was like, oh, cool, he's gonna get me sponsored, you know? And he's like, hey, you know, what are the other women doing in your sport? And I'm like, I don't know, you know? And he's like, all right, well, you guys actually have leverage here, like if you get together. So Drew Mearns is his name, and he actually was responsible for really planting the seed in our minds. So I have to give a shout out to him. Long story short, we got together and we were like, yeah, let's just not show up. We'll see what happens. We go and like, we're just kind of watching the next day. The bleachers actually were full for some reason. I don't know how that happened. But yeah, no one was there.
They wanted to see you, Mimi.
No, it was street, so they definitely did not want to see me. Long story short, we got on the phone with the general manager of X Games at the time, and Cara Beth Burnside was really just like the champion leading the way for everyone, and we all were just kind of like trusting her. And so she's on the phone with them, and we were like, look, we weren't making demands. We were like, we really just want to have a voice more than anything. We want a seat at the table, like, will you give us a meeting? And he's like, yeah, if you guys can get the girls to show up, like, we'll give you a meeting. And so we're like, all right. So we got everyone to go. Street happened. Vert happened the next day. A whole year went past. We got no meeting. So fast forward summer of 2006, we're like, what the hell? Again, like the week before X Games. And so through like a string of connections, we basically got an article published into the front page of the sports section of the New York Times calling them out. And then we got our meeting after that. So, yeah. So Cara Beth, Drew, and myself met with the vice president of ESPN at the time in the Staples Center the night before the women's vert contest in 2006. And so we sat down. He was a really nice guy, and he's like, look, I can give you guys equal prize money overnight. I can do whatever I want. But the problem is I have to go and replicate that with every sport we work with. And in return, we said, look, we want equal purse, like reflecting the ability level of the field too. And our field was very small at that time. We wanted it to grow over time, kind of together, and along with increased exposure. But the main thing we asked for that day was we want to run our own events. So he said yes to all three of those, and we did a deal, and overnight I was an event manager. So I had to learn how to do that. But yeah, and it grew from there. 3 years later, I was working with people at Sports and Cop and ESPN by that point, and they called me a couple weeks ahead of time. They're like, hey, we want you to know, like, we're announcing, parity this week. So it actually hit Winter X Games first before it hit us the following summer. So it affected all sports. It was pretty cool. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
And that's a remarkable feat. And yeah, I mean, wow. Thank you very much from me, especially. However, as I mentioned, that example I spoke of was last year. So, Candy, you might have some opinions on this, but how is it that there's some of those, like the big three, I see those big comps, we're seeing like an equal prize purse, but this European level, like you must face it all the time.
Oh yeah, it's definitely something that still happens at almost all the contests I go to. Only Street League and X Games have equal prize money. I think every other contest I skated the last 5 years has unequal prize money. I think what in Mimi's story happened is they had unity. I think it also has a lot of visibility, so it's hard for a giant contest. If someone puts out something bad about their contest, people are gonna know because it's so big. All these European contests are still smaller than X Games Street League. They're big. We have the World Cups and we have the Mystic Cup and all that stuff. I think there's one contest now, I think it's the Vigo one, Omar Skinho. They have equal prize money, but it took a lot of demonstrating from other people outside of skateboarding who were like, hey, something's wrong. We're gonna demonstrate, protest against this because this is unfair. I think it takes a bigger group of people, and I think it takes unity. I tried to address it once, and the year after I didn't get paid for my hotel. I had to pay a registration fee. They just kind of punished me for speaking up. That doesn't keep me from speaking up, but it definitely, I'm a professional skateboarder. I live off prize money because I'm a woman in skateboarding and I live in Europe. I have two disadvantages. I don't make money because of sponsors or incentives of magazines or whatever. I make money skating contests, so that's what I depend on. That's why I keep going to this contest. I don't know if Emma's here. Emma made a post. Yeah, Emma made a post the other day. She was like, there was another competition and they had unequal prize money, and she made a post about saying in her story, or maybe even on your feed, I don't know. She was like, I don't depend on prize money. I choose not to go to this contest because I'm lucky to be one of the ones that doesn't depend on prize money, that doesn't make a living out of skateboarding. But this is so unfair, I won't show up to this contest until there's equal prize money. I think if we all did that, at that moment everyone was like, listen, this is what we got to do, it would have changed. So I think that's for us, that's our own responsibility to also speak up and form that unity.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but yeah, okay. So much clapping. It's like a cricket match. No, I would say, yeah, absolutely. And I felt in that position before too. We have a competition in the UK every year. We get treated really like second-rate citizens. It could be at midnight. It could be at 9 a.m. There's never equal practice. There's never even access to practice. This year I felt like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to show up, and maybe I can get a few other people not to show up. And as I started to investigate that and start to maybe feel like I was going to do that, then I suddenly thought, oh no, there's all these young girls that are stoked to be invited to this event, and actually winning this, a small amount of money is an actual significant amount of money to them. So I was like, I'm taking away their opportunities. And also, why is it on me? And yeah, so how do we do it?
How do we do it? That's a really good question. I think because we are privileged to be in this position. We've been skateboarding our whole lives. Some of us are making money through skateboarding or with skateboarding or whatever. With that comes a responsibility, and I can totally see where you're coming from, because I have someone, maybe you know her, Skate Kate. She's my little friend, and she's killing it at the moment. And I did have the feeling that if I would do something like that, it might hold her back. But also I know if my generation doesn't do it, it's going to be on the next generation to do it. So in 3 or 5 years, she's going to face the exact same thing that I've been facing my whole life. Also, right now, I have the feeling ears are opening, people are listening. So right now is the time to do stuff like that, or to like use your voice to make sure people see what is happening. Like events like this, there's a lot of important people in this place who organize events, who are doing competitions, who meet people who matter in skateboarding. So I think right now is the time to use our voice and say, hey, listen, we've been doing this for a long time. It's enough now. If X Games can do it, it's really, those are big amounts of money. So we can definitely do that with $3,000. We can make that happen.
Are we all in?
I was also just going to add, like, what you said is exactly correct. The way we were able to do that was because we had unity at the time. But maybe it's worth sitting down with the group at those events, even if it's their parents too, if it's a kid, and maybe having the conversation of how does everyone feel about this, and then maybe go from there, you know?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think the first thing is it goes way beyond just skateboarding competitions, right? So you could apply this to any opportunities that you're getting from the skateboarding industry. If we stand together, our collective action is powerful. And I know that to be true, not just because of Mimi's example with the X Games, but I know that to be true because of Billie Jean King. I know that to be true because of the labor movement. Like, collective action has been something that has helped human beings, you know, for hundreds of years now, get shit done and make things real and make things right. And so I just wanted to mention that it's, you know, there's not just one example of like equity happening in the world. If you don't know, you know, other stories, I'd, you know, look up the legacy of Billie Jean King from tennis and creating equity there. Yeah.
Also, I don't know anything about winning competitions or entering competitions, but if we're talking about allyship, maybe it's not just the women that boycott it in pursuit of equal pay.
Cheers, thank you for that. All right, something that I've heard over the previous few days that's come up in a few different panels is this idea of imposter syndrome. So yeah, how's the feeling that you're not good enough or you're going to be seen as a fraud affected any of you guys as a women skateboarder?
100%. Even being on this panel today, surrounded by people who are making such big strides in skateboarding, I find myself feeling like, well, I can't do this trick, so I must not be legitimate as a skateboarder, or like, what contributions am I making to skateboarding besides asking really adept questions at panels about skateboarding? You know, and that sort of anxiety that I get when I feel like I'm not doing enough for this community that has literally saved my life. You know, and I think that the I feel that I also deal with the imposter syndrome in so many other spaces as well. I'm one of the only Black people at this conference, one of the only Latin American people at this conference. You know, it's like there's so many levels of where you can feel alienation or isolation. And I think that with skateboarding, something that has really helped me is the physicality of skateboarding for me has been a way for me to combat the sort of cognitive dissonance that I feel embodied in my body, that sort of imposter syndrome feeling, like anxiety. I feel it in the back of my throat. Maybe I'll feel it that my hands are shaking. Maybe that's what's preventing me from going to the skate park, because I think, oh, well, I can't do this trick. Why am I even here? And I think that oftentimes the way that I'm able to sort of quell those feelings is by reminding myself, like, this body is a home to a soul, hey? And every body in here has that shared experience, right? And then when you remind yourself that your body is home to this soul, and that a way for you to get out of your head and where your breath is kind of caught is to try to, this sounds really meta in a way, but for skateboarding, especially the breathing aspect, I'm moving, it's an action that is enabling me to retrieve my breath from my head where it's stuck. And in that imposter syndrome, in this idea of structural disadvantages, in this idea that I am not enough, and helps me through movement to return that breath to my heart and move beyond that imposter syndrome in a really deep, transformative way. And so I've definitely dealt with it in the past and in so many ways. And I also find that, yes, we can talk about it, but sometimes you just got to get fucking out there and skate it and move through that discomfort, not move past it, not move on, but grow through it.
I think if I wouldn't have been so obsessed with skateboarding, I would have stopped a million times because of that feeling. Like showing up to a skate park, showing up to a skate spot. I still get it when I go street skating with my friends and they do better tricks than me. I feel like I don't belong.
Yeah.
I know I belong. I feel I belong. Like every inch of my body like tells me this is exactly where I should be at this moment on this skateboard. But as soon as I'm out there and I get that little, but it's also something that's grew through time, because I think, especially being a woman in a male world, there I go. It will they will tell you, but you don't belong, but you're not good enough, but you can't do this trick. You're sponsored, you can't even do this trick. I got 10 other friends who can do that trick, and they're not sponsored. Like, all those comments.
Don't read the comments.
Yeah, that's what makes, no, but they tell you, like, that's not reading. That's someone telling you straight up, you suck. I think that's what still gets me to this day. Like, I've been skating forever, and this is exactly what I want to do all the time, like, the next 70 years of my life. But it's that, it makes you feel like an imposter. But you know, like, your body is telling you this is what you should be doing. But meanwhile, there are all these other people out there, all these other voices. People, it's not just like, it's not skateboarders. It's also people telling you, get a real job. Why are you still skating? You're an adult. Isn't that for kids? All that stuff, like that.
You need a career.
On the moment like that, it counts. And all I can do is skate my fucking ass off, because that's what I want to be doing. And for me, that works. I don't know if that works for everyone, but for me, it's just like what you said, like that, like feeling that that's what you should be doing and going through that motion, kind of. That's what makes me feel like I belong. But it takes a little bit of time.
I just wanted to add to it. When I got this fellowship, I remember when I got it, it was this immense, it was funding to travel the world and pursue a passion-driven research project. And the first thing I did was weep. Everyone was around me, super excited for me, like, oh my God, Kava, you got this great opportunity. And all I could think was like, man, but I can't even kickflip. Like at the time, I can now, thank God. But at the time, I remember feeling like, whoa, what is skateboarding? And like, is it possible to contribute to the skateboarding movement, collective breathing community we have here, while not necessarily being a kickflipper? I remember meeting a friend on Girl Skate India on the tour who physically cannot skate due to pain that they have in their body, but they're a beast builder, right? And Kesha, you know, someone who is skateboarding is not just about the piece of wood with the wheels on it. Like, there's so many ways that you can contribute to this community. And I think that sometimes that imposter syndrome was also exacerbated, worsened by this idea that, oh, if I can't do X, Y, Z, then I must not have anything to contribute. And this is a movement. In movement work and collective action, you don't see a bunch of people as the figurehead. You don't got 20 Martin Luther Kings necessarily, right? Or 20 Rosa Parks. Like, there are people who are organizing that action that you can't even see behind the scenes that are helping move things forward. So I guess if you ever find yourself doubting, like, do I belong in the skateboarding community? Do I have anything to contribute? Remember that there's many, many ways to contribute to the collective, and that everybody's role, whether small or big, is critical.
Yeah, I definitely feel imposter syndrome a lot. I feel it here on the panel and skateboarding with everyone. But something that I always kind of think of when I feel like that is one of our girls, Soraya. She's 11 years old. She's just learned to drop in. But she does this thing whenever she gets both feet on the board, she lets out this giggle, like she can't fucking believe that it's real and that it's happening. And I feel like whatever level we're at, whether you're pro or you're teaching or you're learning or whatever, if you get that that in, because I feel it, and I feel like we all feel that internal little like, whoo, like whenever you do anything. I feel like if you get any joy from skateboarding whatsoever, then you're good enough to skate and you're good enough to be in those spaces.
And Amber, I wanted to actually ask you about that. And I remember you said when you were thinking of first going to volunteer at Skate Pal, and you had that kind of feeling there, like, should I go? Is it for me? Is it safe there? I mean, it doesn't seem like I should go. It must be all the good skaters that go. And
yeah, there's a lot around that, and getting more women involved, whether it's in magazines and using showing women skaters, and but also featuring work by women, by videographers, photographers, writers. A lot of conversations that I've sort of heard over the few days have been, oh, but we want them, but we just, we can't find them. Ask for them. Do a call out on Instagram and say, we want you, because they're going to be thinking, these are women that have tried and tried and tried and been ignored and not had like replies to their emails. They're not going to keep trying. They're going to learn, you don't want me, you're not interested in me. If you want women at your project, if you want women in your magazine, ask them and make it a space where they know that you want to show their work. Don't just sit there and wait for them to come to you after they've been rejected, like all their lives pretty much, for not being good enough. Ask them. And also part of what Women Skate the World is trying to do is to encourage women to go out and teach and volunteer and know that they are good enough. And again, that comes back to explicitly saying, yes, we're talking to you, we want women. And I feel that maybe something that's holding people back is that we all want to be super inclusive to the point that we daren't say that we're not and admit that actually we need that. We need you to come and send us your work because we don't know where you are or who you are because we're living in a white man bubble. But just say it, swallow your pride and say it. And if you are a woman who wants to go out and visit these places, there's a couple of them. Palestine, Skate Pal has just let Women Skate the World write a bit in their volunteer pack that is written by women for women. We have a cheat sheet for Sully Skate Park in Iraqi Kurdistan as well. I'd encourage any women that have been to these projects and know what it's like to be a woman in these spaces to contribute to this and create a cheat sheet, and we can share this information and we can support each other in these spaces and get more women out to teach so that little girls all over the world can see that and go, skateboarding's for me.
I just wanted to speak a little bit to the idea that some men might not feel comfortable or feel weird to intentionally call in certain communities. So whether that's like women or trans folks, non-binary folks, whatever identity group, you might feel like, well, there's going to be someone that's going to DM us back and say, well, this isn't fair. Like, I've been shooting photos my whole life. I've never gotten a photo. I've never, and you're going to kind of get that reaction. And I just wanted to share something that may help you in having conversations with those folks. And I think the way that conversation should be centered and regrounded is that there has been a historical lack of representation, a historical lack, right? So we're kind of dealing with like this inequality to start with, which I think it's hard for a lot of like your average skaters to understand. I feel like there's a lot of Instagram things that I see that are like gay, straight, fuck it, let's go skate. And then I go to the skate park that afternoon and hear like homophobic slurs. So it's like a little bit like confusing. Like we're not fully honest with ourselves as skateboarders that what constitutes the word skaters is extremely diverse, and there's a lot of people that are showing up that look like this, and then there's a lot of people not showing up that look like that. So we have to kind of be honest with who's showing up and who has power in our community. And if we're committed to dismantling that, we shall also be committed to intentionally calling in those communities that have been in the margins and not represented by our media, by our who's on our team, who's welcome to the park. I mean, it was apparent the other day at the skate high school. I will butcher the name. I'll just call it Brig for short. But I was out there skating, and I'm a confident skater, but I was terrified. I was one of very few non-male skaters. And the folks that I felt like had a lot of space there were folks that were like extremely talented. So just recognizing that that will happen in our spaces, and like what are ways that we can make sure that everyone has space, because if that's what we're all committed to, right? Yeah.
Yep. Cool. So I want to pull out from that a little bit about, actually, it was covered yesterday, and that is underrepresentation in traditional skateboard media. So it did get a solid mention yesterday. We don't necessarily need to cover the same ground, but for me, I do feel like there's some element of gatekeeping. And whilst I am a big fan of the tangible, hold the magazine in your hand, and I've been ecstatic if I've ever got a skateboard, a photo in print, I do wonder if the small groups that run the publications are using that power as a form of control for them and their mates. So yeah, I mean, I want to talk to you all about this, but I want to, in particular, like highlight the fact that Candy Jacobs is here on this stage and is one of the best women skateboarders in Europe, is doing handrails, and has never been featured in a traditional core skateboarding magazine having her own interview. That wouldn't happen to the best like bloke, you know? It's just outrageous. Exactly.
We were just talking about this. Lucy asked me, like, hey, have you ever been featured? And I was like, I had to think about it because I kind of thought I did. Because I was like, it would make sense, you know? Like, I've been skating for so long. I've been around for a while. The last Skatism issue, Sander, thank you. That was the first time I had, like, an interview in a magazine and some pictures. I was super stoked about it. But that question made me realize it has never happened before. It's kind of weird.
And so, to Mimi, you started a brand called Hooper Skateboards with Cara Beth Burnside. I feel particularly to address this issue. At the time, there was a lot of these young women skateboarders that should have been elevated and had a platform to show off that they were progressing female skateboarding. Tell us a bit about Hoopla.
So the back end of that story is Cara Beth had always ridden Powell boards, like the mini logo boards with no graphic, really. And she just, they just send them to her. She never really asked for much else. And she'd been doing that for quite a long time. And Michael Furukawa at Skate One was like, hey, like, we don't really know where to put you, like, within the brands we have. But if you wanted to start your own brand, like, maybe we could support that. So then she came to me. I have an art background. She's like, hey, I don't want to do this by myself. Will you help me? So yeah, we literally sat down on her couch with a computer, like typed in the thesaurus, just words. And we're like, oh, this one's cool. Hoopla sounds cool. It's like, whimsical chaos, I think was the definition at the time. So yeah, just came out with the logo. Sold it to George Powell for not very much money. But George actually was really great. He took on all the manufacturing portion of the brand. And we ran the brand for about 10 years. But the reason the brand was actually started, they wanted to do it for Cara Beth. She really wanted to do it because at the time there was, there were guys getting in the van and going on tours. There's nothing like that for women. And there are definitely no board brands at the time, even flowing girls' boards very often. So we saw a gap there, and we're like, yeah, this would be cool if we could fill it. We didn't realize how much hard work it would be, and that it really wasn't a profit-making business. But it was a really fun time, and yeah, we ended up, being the first board sponsor for like Nora and Samari Brevard and Alicia Brigado and Alana Smith, and just lots of awesome people that are just stars now, and it was really cool to play a part. So, but yeah.
So yeah, I mean, off of that, we've had a little discussion about if we do get covered in the more traditional core magazines, skate media, it very much focuses, especially at the beginning of the interview, it's very gender driven. All too many times we get asked the same questions. We've been over those questions. I mean, how do you guys feel about that? I'm thinking you, Kristin. Come on.
I'm just trying not to take up too much space on this panel. I love everyone here, and I just love hearing you speak. So, please, if you are interviewing a woman or a non-traditional skater of any identity, it would be really great if the interview just didn't center just on the identity. And I think this might be something that people don't necessarily realize is happening when they're doing it, because it sets us up to never just be a skateboarder or be ourselves. Our identity is like taking up a lot of the space. And as someone that interviews folks and interviewing other folks that look like me for the Skate Witches zine, I realized through that process that I was never asking women, what was it like to be the only girl in the van? Or what's it like, when you're on your period? Like, we don't ask those questions because the audience I write to are other folks from our community, and those questions are boring because we all know what the answer is. Like, it sucks and it's awkward. But mostly I see this happening when guys are interviewing women. I see them ask questions that are focused on their identity, and it's a natural curiosity. But what that tells me as someone that reads that is that you're writing to your audience. You're writing to other men who would be curious about that. And I feel like that is kind of a narrow audience, because if we believe the skateboard community is broader, then we should ask questions that aren't just really focused on someone's identity, and instead give them the opportunity to share who they are beyond that, and who they are as an individual. Because it sort of sets us up to all look like a homogenous group, and just amongst this panel, like, we have diverse experiences amongst, non-traditional skaters globally. We have a diverse experience, so it sort of sets us up to all be homogenized in a way that isn't the true story. And so if you consider yourself a great journalist, push yourself a little bit to move beyond just the identity.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. Yeah. 6. Yeah. If I'm in that interview, if my story is interesting, I'll offer that up anyway. Do you know? Yeah. I mean, if it's really funny because I was a woman in that situation, I'll offer that up. But it might not be the defining. It's not the only thing. And I wanted to then touch upon, because it's something that's happening now, and it's in the comments, and I do get asked it, and it's how we feel about constantly being asked around those that don't possibly have the best skate ability, but they look cute, sexy, cool, pretty, have 1 million+ followers, earning money and getting more free shit than you can shake a stick at. Let's go.
Okay, I think Kristin's going to talk a little bit about this. But firstly, when it comes to women, if we're accepting, which I think we should, that it's an economic condition, how women make their money and support themselves, I don't give a fuck. I was a lap dancer for 7 years, and I'm not judging any other woman on how she makes it through the world. And the other thing is, stop baiting us into hating on other women when there's more serious things to talk about.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I get those questions all the time. And I do feel like it kind of sets us up for two things. So the first thing is that as a woman, I've experienced a type of sexism that tells me that I can't critique other women, or I can't have an opinion about other women, that we all have to play nice together, and we don't get to have our own opinions on things. And so I just wanted to create space for that right here, so that, like, just to let other folks know and give other folks permission to not have to just to not share how you feel about something. I think it's extremely sexist to tell women that they can't share how they feel, regardless of what it has to do with. I feel like often we're socialized just to, sugarcoat things or something to that effect. The other thing is, going off of being baited into certain conversations where it sets, core women skaters against, like Lucy mentioned, like girls that are maybe models that skate, and I think that's unfair because we're both in this boat of skateboarding and it's sinking. So why would we want there to be a divide between us? And we need to work together to create equity in skateboarding. And I feel really strongly that those questions are extremely problematic and don't give a lot of space to the partnership we need to create with all women that skateboard to envision a more equitable world. So we were just talking about community building and solidarity and having that unity. And what those questions do is pit us against each other, and it's not okay.
I guess I would say, sorry, you want to go?
I'll go after.
Okay, I'll be quick. I guess I would say, first of all, skateboarding to me is not about how good you are. So it's about the feeling you get from skateboarding and like what it means to you. So I'm not going to judge someone that's not very good at skateboarding. Like, that's the first part. So I don't care about that. Also, I think with Instagram and social media, like we live in a time where the currency is different now. And the people that maybe aren't as good at skateboarding, they're succeeding in that on those platforms. I mean, I'm actually impressed with the business sense they have because, I mean, you have to be a business person to make that shit work. But the other side of the coin, I do know a lot of professional, progressive skating women who are not supported, that are like really putting in blood, sweat, and tears. And, I'm sitting next to one of them. So I don't like seeing that part of it, but I don't think it's these other women's fault that that's happening. Exactly. There's space for everybody.
That's good thing you went first, because that's what I wanted to touch on. I think we have to remember that we are still living in a space where we are under this very sexualizing male gaze. And earlier I touched upon this question of like getting the mother of two to skate, and how that question really grants us access into this idea, like, what does it mean to be a woman in the world? And like how much of that is based on what we can do for others, the acts of service, the intellectual and emotional labor that we're doing. I think that those conversations are happening in this same space of why are girls who look very pretty to the, there's this conventional beauty, there's this idea, there's this almost instrumental value, and people get really frustrated. And I've definitely felt myself in that space of like, why is it that she can't do this, and then she has all these followers or has all these things, and then I find myself recognizing like, wow, I definitely have internalized misogyny in that. Like just because you occupy a position of marginality doesn't mean that you don't experience privilege in other spaces and therefore can have ignorance in other spaces, right? And so I found myself thinking like, but then at the same time having that projected onto me, like, oh, why is it that she has access to this opportunity? Maybe she can write well, but she can't do this or that. And it gets us in this whole circle that makes us starts to place these systemic issues on the individual, and then it becomes the individual's responsibility to have to answer to and for those systems that they did not choose, power dynamics that they did not choose, a gaze that we did not choose to live under, but shapes our experience of our bodies and what is possible within skateboarding. So it's like, yes, like I think it's a touchy question, but I think that we should spend more time critiquing like, why is the male gaze so sexualizing? Why is it that this is profitable? Why is it that people they don't necessarily care about skill when they see a pretty girl on the board? Is it that, can she be beautiful and still shred? Obviously. But like, let's think deeper about what is it that, like, we're dictating what the market is with our money, right? With our choices, the choices of what we're giving clicks to, what we're liking, what we're seeing. And like, maybe we need to start interrogating ourselves and why we buy into this sexualization of the femme body. And then if she's choosing to celebrate herself, or someone is choosing to celebrate their body, why are we also why is it the onus on them to defend that choice as if it were wrong? I'm not sure if I'm really answering the question more as much as just like pointing out all the logical fallacies in this situation. Like,
Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm being rushed into Q&A or not. I've seen Phil, yeah? Because I didn't make a note of what time we started, so I didn't know what time we finished. Apologies to the panel, because we have got more to cover, so you guys better ask some good questions that meet my notes. Do you need my microphone? Let's go.
Hi, is this working? Yeah. I just had a question, kind of like runs against, I guess, that idea of, you know, you're, as a male interviewer, you're asking questions about gender. But I'm like a documentary maker, and I started filming at different like local skate parks and interviewing local skaters, and I've been doing it for about a year. And I didn't realize that like I was kind of asking questions to the women in a way that I didn't even realize at the time when I was beginning was quite gendered in itself, because I was sort of trying to relate to the women. So the men would sort of come across quite confidently on camera because maybe they were just more used to being kind of confident and saying their pieces, whereas the stuff I get from the girls who weren't used to being filmed, because it's, you know, not people who are used to interviews, it's just kind of like local girl skaters, they would be a bit self-deprecating, and I realized that actually the way I would maybe try and relate to them as a woman, I would be asking these kind of more basic questions just to make us both feel comfortable. And I was just wondering, as like role models and the way you kind of teach girl skaters, have you been conscious of that, like your language with girls, and like, you know, if so, how do you do that? That's my question.
I just wanted to say first, it's not a bad thing to ask what is it like to be a woman in a certain situation. That's never like a bad question. It's just be aware of what that question may arise, like what comes out of that question. And I think it's very aware of you that you're like, hey, I'm asking these questions in a certain way that makes people feel a certain way. I think that's like the start of ending all of this, being aware of that. For me, like I teach a lot of kids. I teach all the kids. Every time I go to a skate park, I'll go up to someone and ask questions about either a trick I want to learn or how I want to teach someone. And I think I'm never aware of like, oh, it's a girl, it's a boy, it doesn't matter. Like I think if you try to teach someone, you speak skateboarding. Alongside of teaching someone to skateboard, you teach someone how to deal with being in the skateboarding community, all the unwritten rules. But as far as it comes to skateboarding and teaching them, for me, it's just I speak skateboarding. That's what I do.
Hi. Thank you for your question. I just wanted to touch a little bit on the interview questions in particular, because I mentioned the Skate Witches zine, and what I didn't mention is that we have a section of the Skate Witches zine called Boys on Boards, which is where we interview the hottest boy skateboarders from around the globe. And yeah, just talking to them about, you know, their struggles. Okay, I'll stop. So how I started writing the questions for that is I literally just looked up like Letitia Buffoni interview, Lacey Baker interview. Like I just started Googling like the biggest names in women's skateboarding, and I just looked at those questions, you know, what's it like to be the only girl at the skate park? And all we did is just change the gender. And it's comical, right? Everybody laughs. And I think that's something that I've carried over into like, as best as I can. Obviously, it's a journey. anytime I'm like questioning, like this doesn't like feel right, this feels a little weird, lopsided, like am I doing this right? I'll just change the pronouns, I'll just change the gender, and then if I laugh and it sounds ridiculous, then I know my feeling that it didn't sit right sounded bizarre, that I was true. But if I switch those around and it feels right, then I'll move forward. So yeah, just a little tidbit. I also wanted to share that I also work with children a lot, and I will admit that it's often that when I'm working with like a young girl or like, whether it's particularly if they dress in things that are known to me or I've been socialized to think are feminine. So like, let's say a little girl in like a tutu with a pink shirt and pink grip tape and whatever, a unicorn helmet or something. I'll, in the past, and probably in the future, I'll still mess this up. I will feel like it is my duty to make sure that this child cannot fall because little girls can't fall. If I make a little girl fall, she might never skateboard again. And I put myself as this like person that has to make sure as many women on earth skateboard, and I put all this pressure on myself. And then if I'm teaching like a little dude or a young person that's like maybe a tomboy, like I was, like dressed like a little girl dressed all in boys' clothes, I'd be like, she can fall, she's good. Or like that little dude doesn't need help, like he's fine, he'll slam, get back up. And so that's something that I've been really working through, and wanted to invite other people to work through that with me.
Sorry, just quickly. I think it is easy to kind of fuck up and try to empower little girls to skate, but in a way that is not helpful. There's a girl that we teach called Sana, and she's 11 and she's very outspoken. And I asked her once, I think it was somebody wanted a quote from her or something. I can't remember what it was, but I asked her, I said, "You're not interviewing her, I'll interview her because I know her." And I said to her, what do you say when people say that girls can't skate? And her reaction was, "Who said that? I'll kill them." And she didn't know that anybody was saying that. I was the one who was telling her that. And that's problematic. That's not helpful. So we do need to stay aware.
Next question.
Hey, open question for the whole panel. We spoke about competition and equal pay or equal prize money. How would you like to see competitive skateboarding develop to be inclusive of the gender landscape that needs to be kind of discussed? So gender non-binary folk, trans folk, then you have men and women competitions. How do we see skateboarding competitions including that conversation?
I'm definitely not an expert on that subject, but my instincts tell me like we would need to ask them and see what they would want and create something around, have the community create something around that space for them, by them.
I mean, also even just thinking about whether men and women divisions are even relevant in skateboarding in the future as well.
I don't know. I have no idea. Kristin?
Well, I think about this all the time because I think that we are at a stage where we're suddenly, it's becoming evident that there's some young girls out there that actually, I'm just going to speak about it. Right. Racer is 11. She's winning the biggest and the best competitions. She is probably, I say this, she's at the stage where she is as good as an 11-year-old boy. So we've come a long way, and yeah. So I think that possibly that one day there doesn't need to be that. Hopefully.
I agree on what you say, but I also have a different opinion. I think a lot of skateboarding is very physical. It's physical. And I think there's just a really big difference between women and men physically. So jumping that, like, I know if I would jump El Toro twice, I would probably tear all my shit up. I know if Nigel does it 25 times in a row, he's going to be good. So I think the gap will become smaller and smaller during time. Like, women's skateboarding is still like kind of new compared to like where the dudes started way earlier. Women's skateboarding is still like newer. So I think the gap is going to close, but I think there will always be, it's like soccer or running, sprinting, whatever. There's still yet to be...
right, at that elite top 1% or whatever.
Yeah, the elite will, like, there will be a difference. But I think the gap will become smaller and smaller, and I think combined contests would not be a weird thing. Like, it would be awesome. Like, I'd be down. But I think in, like, top level, it will never be the same level. That's a very strong opinion, but that's what I think.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I feel like, at least currently right now, like, unfortunately, like, the binary of having like a men's division and a women's division is like pretty necessary. And the reason why I feel that is because historically, a lot of folks, mostly women, have felt completely left out of skateboarding. And so it's like you roll up to the skate park and how many folks are not men? Like, that right there should tell you that the talent pool of women skaters globally is like microscopic compared to like how many men have access to even try skateboarding. When you combine that with layers of access to skate parks, skate coaches, supportive parents that like don't give a shit that little girls aren't supposed to do XYZ, like they really push and support you, like all those other factors are stacked up against women. So unfortunately, I feel like for now, like the obviously we envision a world where it wouldn't matter, but in our lifetimes, it most likely still will. Within that, I would like to make space for folks that identify as trans, non-binary, to select which division they want to be in, regardless of what they were assigned at birth.
Or for the really radical folks who have access to, who are decision makers in these kinds of competitions, why don't you experiment with having, at your competitions, having all gender spaces, or even like a jam where, I guess it's kind of like if you identify as genderqueer outside of the binary, maybe there's a whole third section for those folks. That sounds really radical right now, but so did a lot of the things we're talking about and doing. So.
Thank you for that. And that is something, so I host Wheels of Fortune every year in Seattle. And that was something that was talked about. I talked to the couple folks in our community and asked, like, would we do like a ZEM division that was sort of different? And the feedback that I got, and I understand it was like a handful of people, and I need to do some more work around this, was that we kind of came to the conclusion that they were like, fuck competitions. It's kind of where it boiled down to. And a lot of folks in those communities are anti power structures, and the way that a contest is even run in a lot of ways can be problematic. But yeah, definitely open to it. And the last 2 years, we've been explicitly trans inclusive. So that includes like trans masc, trans femme, trans women, however, non-binary. You can enter our event. And we had a division where a non-binary person won first place, and we got some shit for it, but we let them know that we're committed to equity and providing space for that community as well, although small. They have a space with us.
Well, thank you for an interesting panel. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about brands. As I see it now, there's brands and they have teams, and there's just men on the team, and then there's sections where it's women or female board companies where there's only women on. Do you see that in the future there will be both men and women on the teams? And if so, how could that be accomplished? Thank you.
Hi, Emma. I think that's definitely, this is my own opinion. Doesn't mean it's right. But I think that's definitely possible in the future. In the past, like with a brand like Hoopla, like it was created because there was no inclusion, so we wanted to create something new. The reason the brand did get shut down towards the end was because these legacy brands all of a sudden did want female riders or women riders. So, you know, like Samaria called me up and was like, went on King of the Road, like Enjoy, loved her. They've had this great friendship blooming, and she's like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, you should go 500% with Enjoy. Like, this is never going to happen again. Like, this is the whole point, is for you to be elevated, to have a career. And so now that started to happen with a lot of the legacy brands. And, you know, we shut down Hoopah because we were like, our mission has been fulfilled. I mean, originally we thought we were going to make a lot of money off of a new brand, and create this whole community. But in the end, we created the community, and then the void was no longer there as we saw it. But there is still, like, the space is still needed. Like, Meow Skateboards is amazing, and Lisa's thriving with her brand right now. I mean, team is amazing. And it's something I talk to Lisa often about, like, well, maybe, you know, one day there'll be guys too on the team. And I think eventually it'll get to that point where it's not so black and white and separate. I think it will evolve one day.
Yeah, I think I agree with Mimi on this point, but also I'm gonna use Kristin's word. We're half of the planet, so there's definitely a market for women in skateboarding. And as soon as the core brands are gonna they're gonna see it, they're gonna need us, and I think that's when that gap will close, and there will be equally as much men and women on the brand. Then right now it's super unequal, but it's definitely changing, and I think that's because we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think another way that we need to start making the change is, and we mentioned this phrase a lot, but get a seat at the table. And what doesn't sit well with me is the fact that there's men in the boardroom and the marketing department telling me what women I should aspire to be like, look like, want to skate like. Like, it's not authentic to me. And so, yeah, I think we need to try and use that allyship there to gain that seat at the table. Use us and employ us. And we've got stuff to say, we've got ideas, and we want to help.
Okay. I think we've got time for one more quick question because we are massively overrunning. So one more.
Hi, thank you, everyone. So when I was growing up, I didn't have really any female role models. Sorry, women role models, girl role models. And I really wanted to fit in with the guys that were around me, and I wanted to look like them, and I felt a desire for acceptance from them in lots of ways. Over time, I think I've become less interested in that, and I think I've probably come to a more authentic sense of my own identity. But I recognize that I think I still see that in other people as well, this desire for acceptance. So my question is, do you feel a desire for validation from traditional/core skateboarding? And if you do recognize that, how or in what ways do you move through that or challenge that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really do. All the time. Like, I battle with it all the time. I mean, you said you wanted to look like the guys. I still want to look like Ronnie Krieger and Josh Kalis. I try every day to do that. But yeah, I mean, the second part of your question, I don't know how I get through it, and it has affected me to the point where it's like turmoil because I want to be really good and get in a magazine and film a street part and do that traditional skateboarding because that's what I know and love. What's the next bit?
Do you seek to challenge that or move through it in some way? Or I'm not really sure what the question
I
is
mean,
exactly. It's the kind of...
No, and I'm not sure what the answer is, but part of my part of my answer is, okay, this is, I know I felt this like, so when I have had like a great opportunity, say, to go on a trip, and it's been mostly like men in the van, and we've gone somewhere, and with the idea of shooting an article and filming a clip. It's the most traditional stuff you can do in skateboarding, and I've turned up at that spot with everybody, and I thought like, yeah, okay, cool, I can do this here, and I'm practicing it or whatever, and then all of a sudden, somebody does SSB, STS, flip out, and somebody else does this and that and the other, and then I'm like, oh, fuck, I was only going to do a crooked grind, and now it's not worth it. And I've not maximised that opportunity, but at the time I couldn't. I felt shit. And I don't know, then I'm like, right, next time, and I think the way I've worked through it, personally for me, like I've been like, got together with that photographer or that filmer and been like, this hasn't worked for me. Like, are you willing to get up at 8 a.m. and just quickly come with me to this one place, and I'll do this thing, and then we'll have it done. And then I can relax a bit, and I can just skate, and I can enjoy it.
I think it's for me, it's still a struggle. Some of you might know I was on Etnies for a year or 10. I was always flow, got a lot of shoes, which was sick. But all I wanted to do is get in that van and go on trips. And I offered like, hey, I'll pay you money. Like, I want to go on this trip. Can I buy my own flight? Let me know where you are. I'll be there. That opportunity never came up, and I still have that need to like fit in. I don't think it's about fitting in, but also like being valued for the work I put in, all the hours that went into skateboarding, and not getting that interview, not getting that photo or that street part. And I think for me, I power through it to, I bust my ass. Like, I work really fucking hard every day to show myself that I can look at myself in the mirror and be like, today I worked the hardest I could. I did what I could. All those brands, I would love to be valued, but you can go fuck yourself, because I put in all the work that I could today, and tomorrow I'll do it again. Until I feel like I value myself enough to not need that validation from those brands. That's what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm busting my ass off just to do that. That's how I power through, but that validation is super important. I think for all the skateboards, like, everyone wants to hear like, you're sick, you're killing it, that photo was cool. It's something human. Even if you don't skate, you want to hear you're valued, you want to hear you're important. And I think that's definitely where brands could definitely try harder to make people like they feel like they fit in.
Yeah, I agree with Candy. It's kind of part of the human experience to want to be accepted by your community. Skateboarding especially. For me, I guess back when I was like skating more seriously, like it definitely drove me to try to learn maybe tricks that no one was really doing at the time, and I was like, all right, I need to like land this, so then I'm legit, So yeah, I definitely dealt with it that way, but I also feel like you kind of just have to not give a shit, like Candy said, because it's kind of impossible to always reach that level for everyone around you. Like, you can't make everybody happy, and at the end of the day, it's like you kind of just have to not worry about it as much if you can, but yeah.
I know
Cool.
you're coming. That's fine. We have finished. We all need a wee. I need a drink, yes. But we have an important message. Amber would like to say something. This is a content warning. I didn't know what that meant, but there might be something that might trigger you here. So if you want to leave the room, then please do.
A content warning around mental health.
Around mental health.
This is scary. Okay, so the theme of this has been mental health throughout the whole conference. And a lot of people have come up and are talking about how they love the project. And, I'm meeting projects that I've been looking up to and I think are doing amazing work, and we're all applauding each other. But I just wanted to say a little note on the kind of the darker side of social skate work and working with people who are going through trauma and living in that space every day. Again, I'm not a refugee and I don't have to go through anything compared to them. But it is really hard. And if we're in a space here where we're saying to each other that we all need to talk more and we all need to ask for help when we need it, I'm going to just say to a room full of my peers and people that I look up to that I am struggling and I do need help and I am scared of what will happen or what might happen if I don't get help. So if you are a counsellor or have links to counsellors, mentors, support networks, anything that can help me and my team, who I know need help as well, and other social skate projects that I'm sure feel the same, please help us, because we do need it. And we're good at what we do, but we can't do it without your support.
Just keep it going for the panel, everybody. Thank you so much.